It is only our darkest hours that we may discover the true strength of the brilliant light within us that can never ever be dimmed. So believe in yourself and stay consistent and try to give your best, and rest everything will be okay. So let's start with namespaces. And now we click on next. So this will be gone. If you are able to understand, then what happens when I click next? So you can say that this local namespace will be vanished as soon as the function execution will be completed. So when I click on next, so now if I print min, what it will think that we are calling this function, and inside that we are passing a parameter. So it will throw an error. Welcome back to the day 18 of the 100 days of hell with Python algo trading. I'm back from the short trip from India, and let's get started with the day 18. And one more thing, that I would like to apologize to all of you that we had to break this series because of some unforeseen events back in India, and I had to go back. But now all okay, and let's start. So we are left with only two topics of the core Python, that is namespaces and decorators. So we'll try to cover these two topics in this session itself, and if not, then one more session will be there and we'll be finished with the core Python, and then we'll start with the Python libraries. And also I'll update the whole curriculum on the website shortly, hopefully by this weekend, so you can go through and let me know if anything else is required. So with that being said, let's start. So before we get started, I would like to show you some words of wisdom. So it is only our darkest hours that we may discover the true strength of the brilliant light within ourselves that can never ever be dimmed. So believe in yourself and stay consistent and try to give your best, and rest everything will be okay. So let's start with namespaces. A namespace is a space that holds names, that is identifiers, like the name of functions, the name of class, and the name of variables. Those are the identifiers. So we can say, programmatically speaking, namespace are dictionary of identifiers, that is key, and their objects. So let's say, like we have a variable name, variable equals to a. So here in the namespace, it will become a dictionary. Okay, let's make it 2. So in the namespace, it will become a dictionary. So we can write like variable as the key and 2 as the value of this. And let's say again we have a function. So function starts like this, right? So here again, this function is the key, right? The function name is the key, and whatever it returns and whatever it prints, it becomes the value of that, right? So the function return, we can say the value of. So in namespaces, we can say that all these identifiers, the name of variable, the name of function, or the name of class, becomes the keys, and the value of those keys becomes the value, obviously, right? So we can say like that, correct? So there are 4 types of namespaces. The first is built-in, second is global, third is enclosing, and fourth is local. Don't worry, we'll learn all these one by one. First theory, and then we'll proceed with the coding examples. So now let's see the scope and LEGB rule. So a scope is a textual region of a Python program where a namespace is directly accessible. So we can say that whenever we execute a program, we have a scope and a namespace. So in order to understand that, I'll show you one screenshot from the Python tutor, and let's see. This is a program. So when we try to visualize with the help of Python tutor, there is 2 scopes created, right? So what happens when we start the execution? What happens? The program goes to the first line right here, and it sees that there is a variable name, threshold price is equals to 100. So it will create a global frame, which is this one, right? And inside that we have a variable named threshold price is equals to 100, and it will be inside the global frame. So we can say the scope of this variable is global, right? And again, here the dictionary is created. So the threshold price is the key and 100 is the value of the dictionary. Again, the program next move to the here, and here it sees a function. So as we have already studied that the function name is also a key, so it will mention this here, the key, right? The value is not here as of now. Then it will skip the whole program, correct? And it will move here. So here it will see that there is a variable named current market price is equals to 102. So it will declare that in the global frame. So we can say global frame is the global scope, and there are 3 namespaces, 2 variables. The first is threshold price, second is current market price, and the third key is the name of the function. Hope you are able to understand my explanation. If you have any doubt, let me know in the comments. I'll try my best, and maybe we can discuss it again in any supplementary session, correct? So now when the program reaches this line number 13, there is a function called check price and trade, and here it will create another frame, and that will be known as the local scope or the local frame, right? So now we have two scopes, one is global and another is local, and inside that we can have different dictionaries. Inside the global frame we have three values, or we can say three key value pairs, right? Threshold price, check price and trade, and the current market price. And inside the local scope, let's see what is there. So when the function call happens, it will again go to here and it will start executing. So here we have a conditional statement. So it will check the current price is greater than threshold price. So here you can see that outside the function, it was the current market price, but inside it becomes current price. So these two are completely different. The Python will consider them completely different, although they have same value, but it will be treated as different. So you can see here it was current market price, but inside the local scope it is current price, but the values are same. So we can say these both are the different keys and values of the dictionary of the global frame and local frame, right? Now it will check and it will return none. It will just print out the values whatever the condition is true. So this is the simple explanation, and now let me show you a few more things. So we can see that this was the local namespace, correct? And inside that it has its own keys and value. So you can see this is the key number 1, this is key 2, and these are their respective values, correct? Again, this was the global namespace or global scope, you can say, and inside that also it has its separate keys and values, right? Now the third is the enclosing namespace. So enclosing namespace is nothing but what happens, let's say we have this local namespace. Inside that, if we have any other function, right? So let's say this was the function, correct? And let me just remove this. So let's say this was the function, and inside that we have another function, correct? So what will happen now? Let me write it here. So let's say this is the define check. I'll just write it short. Okay, this is this function, and inside that, let's say it had another function named validate, right? So now what will happen? The inside function, the inner function will become the local namespace, and the outer function, this will become the enclosing namespace, correct? And the rest is same, the global is same, just it got changes. This one becomes the local. If it has another function inside this, it will become the local, and this will become the enclosing. So that is nothing but the enclosing namespace. Don't worry, I'll just show you with a live example. So just wait for a few minutes. And the last is the built-in namespace. So for example, we have declared a function here with the name define max, correct? But we know that we have built-in max function. So like we have a list with the values 1, 2, 3, 4, and if I apply max L, it will give me the largest value. So it will give me 4. But if the Python sees that there are two things, one is the max function, which is we have defined, another is the inbuilt max function. So what will happen according to the LEGB rule? So L stands for the local, E stands for enclosing, G stands for global, and B stands for built-in. So we have a program, and inside that, first of all, it will go to the local namespace, or we can say local scope. So whatever inside that, it will give the priority to the local namespace. Then it will go to the enclosing. So we have just understood that what is enclosing. So inside that, if we have a function, so the inner function becomes the local and the outer becomes the enclosing. So the second will be the enclosing. The third will be the global. So global, we have seen that this will, if it has another function, so this will be local, the outer will be the enclosing, and the outermost program will be the global namespace, right? And the last will be the built-in. So if it sees this max anywhere, so this built-in function will have the last priority, right? Hope you are able to understand my explanation. So this is the LEGB rule. This is nothing but the priority order, LEGB. First, local, enclosing, global, and built-in. That's it. So now let's quickly move to the screen and try to understand the theory we have just understood. Okay, now let's create a program. So what we'll do, we'll define a trading capital. This is $10,000, and a function. So define placing trade, and inside that we have trade amount, right? Is, let's say, 1,000. Then what we can do, we can print here, and we can say placing a trade of amount, and here we can give this function variable trade amount out of the total capital we can say, and again we can mention here trading capital, and outside of that function we can print the remaining trading capital is, and whatever it is, trading capital. So now you can see that this is the global variable, right? Trading capital. Inside the function, this trade amount is the local variable, correct? So when we hit shift enter, it will first print, give a function call here, will give placing trade. And now you can see that first it is printing out this last print function. So we can see, and this is local variable inside the placing trade, right? And let's try to understand this in the Python tutor. So what is happening here? Now let's quickly copy and paste this in Python tutor, and let me show you how this works. So here, let me paste it here and click on visualize execution. When I click on next, a global frame will be created because this trading capital is inside the global frame. Also, we can say that this is a dictionary, and inside that trading capital is the key, and 10,000 is the value of that key. And now what happens? The function call happens. So we can say that the function name is also another key. Now another namespace is created, and this placing trade is different from the global namespace. So we have now two spaces. One is global namespace and another is local namespace. So here we have the trading amount, that is 1000, correct? And that is another key and value of this placing trade namespace, that is local. And now it will return nothing. And now we click on next. So this will be gone. If you are able to understand, then what happens when I click next? So you can say that this local namespace will be vanished as soon as the function execution will be completed. So when I click on next, it is vanished, last print statement. So hope you are able to understand that we have separate namespaces, and according to LEGB rule, the first priority is to the local namespace, the second is to the global, third and closing, and fourth is the built-in. Again, move to the program, paste it here. So what is happening here, when we have two namespaces or two scopes, global scope and local scope, but in both the scopes we have a same variable name with the same name. So what we'll do here, let me copy and paste it here. Let's change it to 20,000, right? So now if I hit shift enter, so first it will look inside the local scope. So you can see here that it says placing a trade of amount 1000 out of the total capital 20,000, because we have a variable inside the local and it will print that first. So if I comment this out, what will happen? It will then go to the global scope. So you can see here, it has changed to 10,000, right? Hope you are able to understand. It is very easy. You just have to practice a little bit and you are good to go. Next, we have the local doesn't have, but global has. So we have seen that already. Let me copy and paste the same example here. I'll just copy it from here, paste it here. And what we will do, we will remove this also, paste it here, right? So now you can see that we don't have either of the variables inside the local, but still if you run this, it will print, because first it will look into the local scope and then it will goes to the global. So in global, we have these two variables, so it will print that out. Now, one very interesting concept is here that, so if you try to print this, it will work fine, right? So what we will do, we try to write, let's say, both of these here, trading capital, and what I will do, I will just add a plus. And now you just pause the video and let me know in the comments that whether this will work or not. Because earlier we have seen that we are able to access the global variable inside the local scope. But now, as I have changed something, and you have to guess whether this will work or not. So when I hit shift enter, it says cannot access local variable trading capital where it is not associated with a value. We can access the global variable, but we cannot make any changes. Make sure you keep this in mind. We can only access, but we cannot make any changes. But we have seen that Python is so flexible. If you want to make changes, we can do that, but that is not recommended. So how we can do that? Let me show you. In the next line, we just have to mention keyword that is global, and then trading capital, again global. You can see that as soon as I mentioned global, this turned blue, means we can access this and we can edit this. Again, for the global trade amount also, it turned blue, means we can make changes. So now when I hit shift enter, it works perfectly fine. and it print out the values. So Python is not stubborn. If we want to make changes, we can do that, but this is not recommended. Make sure, if in any case, if you require, you can use, but not recommended. Next, we have a global created inside local. So how we can do that? Okay, let me remove this, copy and paste it here. So what we want actually, we are creating the variable inside the local and we want to access from the outside. So let's say we have these two variables and these are inside the local, and when you try to access, it works fine. Now the next is global created inside the local. So what happens here? Let me copy and paste the same program here. So now you can see that we are creating from the inside and accessing from outside, right? If I hit Shift Enter, it is working. Why? Because in this program, we have already declared the variables outside, and this is considering the above examples, right? These one. So that's why it's printing, but technically it doesn't work. Let me change it to, let's say, something other, 1, 1 and 1, everything. I will just add 1. So it will not conflict with the above examples. Now we have changed everything. So when I Shift Enter, it says name trading capital is not defined, because we cannot access the local variables outside of the function. So for that, what we can do, we can use the same keyword, that is global, right? So I'll write global and trading capital 1, and again global and trade amount. So now when I hit Shift Enter, it works perfectly fine, but still this is not recommended, right? The global keyword should not be used frequently. You can only use this in case of emergency. In short, you should not be using global keyword. Now what we want to do, we want to pass a parameter here and we check whether that parameter is local or global. So what I'll do, I'll just define a variable here. So let's say outside trade amount, let's say 500, and I'll just pass it here, right? And inside that, I will just give trade amount. So I'll just remove it also. So now you can see that it says placing a trade amount of 500 means we have passed here and it is printing that. But we want to check whether this is local or global. So what we will do, we'll just copy and check on the Python tutor. So, and now click on visualize. And here you can see that I click on next, a global scope is created, and function, it will skip whole and it will go to the next, that is outside trade amount, and it is still inside the global, and the function call is happening. Now it will create another local scope, and you can see that it is again creating trade amount 500, which is local. So we can say that whenever a function call happens and we are passing any parameter, and that parameter will be inside the local scope always, right? This is how it works. And let me again open the code. So let's say I'll just create it as a list. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and inside that, what we will do, we'll just try to max. So if we do this, it will print the max of this list, and this also max, correct? So now what is happening, we have a function named max, and also we are using the max inbuilt function of the Python. So now when we hit Shift Enter, it says max takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. Why? Because as per the LEGB rule here, local, enclosing, global and built-in. So built-in has the last precedence. So same thing is happening here. If we try to write like this max trading capital, it will think that we are calling this function and it will not work. It will throw an error. So for that, what we can do, we can just change it to max 1. And now if I hit Shift Enter, trading capital. Okay, now let's try to replace max with min, because I think max is defined somewhere else and there is conflicting with this cell. So now when I try to print this minimum, it says minimum takes 0 positional argument, but 1 was given. Means, and this is the custom functions which we have just defined, but still here it will think that we are calling this function and we are passing a argument here. That's why it is showing an error. So if I comment this out, it will show me the minimum. I have to remove this, I guess. And now when I hit Shift Enter, it still throws an error. I don't know why. Maybe I have to restart this, or max. Also, I think there is some conflict always, right? Because if I restart, and definitely it will work. Now I think some cache or something is there, that's why it's create error. So I'll again try to, yeah, it works fine, and I'll paste it back and I'll remove the comment. So now it is working fine, right? So if I try to print this now, it should throw an error. It is thinking that we are calling this function here. So that's why you can now imagine, and or you can say visualize that LEGB rule, keep in mind. That's it. That will be sufficient, right? Now let's see how you can print all the built-in functions. For that, what you can do, you can print, or before that you have to import a module built-ins, and then you can print directory of the built-ins, and you can see that you have all the built-in functions. The arithmetic error, we have seen that already, the warning, the value error, IPython, and all the packages, ASCII, bin, bool, we have understood most of them. The none we have seen already. And again, like we have the tuple type, where this is how you can check the built-in functions. And now next we have the renaming built-in. So what I'll do, I'll just copy and paste the above program here, and same, first we will try to print the minimum of this list, and then we'll call this function. And here also I'll try to print the same here. Now when I shift enter, it again says that minimum takes 0 positional argument but 1 was given. That it is thinking that we are calling this function and it will not execute this, right? For that, you can do one thing, that you can change this minimum to minimum 1 and this. And now if you try to hit shift enter, it says minimum takes 0 positional argument. Yeah, it's same because there is some cache stored. So we have to restart this kernel. And now when I again copy and paste the same program, it will work. And now you can see that it is working fine. And even when we call this function, it is working fine. So this is how you can use the built-in functions, and you have to be extra cautious when you are using the built-in functions. Next, the last topic is the enclosing scope. So we have already understood this in theory part, but let me show you again. So here we know that this is inside the global scope and this trade amount is inside the local scope. But let's say we have another function here define, and let's say print function, right? And let me move these both inside this function. So now what you can say, that this trade capital is inside the global scope, then this is the innermost scope, right? So it will be considered as the local scope, and outside of this function we have this placing trade, and that is known as the enclosing scope. So what I will do here, let me remove this line first and let's simplify this. So what we will do for now, I'll just write here the global scope and copy and paste inside this, and this is the local scope, and outside this it will be the enclosing scope, correct? So now you pause the video and let me know in the comments that what will be the sequence of printing out these statements. So let me show you. When we hit shift enter, the print function is being called here and it will print this local scope. And then we have a placing trade call here. So it will print the second and third, the global scope. That is very simple and easy, correct? So now I think you are crystal clear that what is local, what is enclosing, and what is global scope. And similarly, let's say I'll just copy and paste it here and I'll just show you the last concept. Same like the global keyword. Let's say this is inside the enclosing scope, right? This is the part of enclosing function. And what I want to do, I want to make some changes here. Let's say trade amount plus equals to 500. We know that this trade amount belongs to the placing trade function. So when we hit shift enter, it shows that cannot access local variable trade amount where it is not associated with the value. But we know that we have used global already, but now we have the enclosing. So for that, what you can do, you can write another keyword that is non-local and trade amount. So now when you hit shift enter, it works fine. So now when you check, it works fine. So when you have enclosing function or enclosing scope, you use a non-local keyword, and when you have only the global and local, you can do your stuff with the global keyword. So that is it for this session. And I think the last topic, which is decorators, we will cover in the next session. And then we'll be done with the Python core concepts. And I think we have covered this Python core concepts very clear with a lot of examples, with a lot of multiple choice questions, with a lot of projects and mini projects. And I think if you complete all these, basic Python is good, then you will always have an upper hand on all the other teammates for sure, right? So see you in the next video. Until then, bye bye, take care, have a nice day.